midterms are coming up, leading there to be at least two political topics that are going to be on the voting board. We're going to have abortion and inflation. So today, I want to talk about why abortion is going to affect the midterms more than inflation with 3 points. The US is shifting to more liberal voters, abortion rights are more political, while inflation is more economic, and how abortion has more coverage and consequences. Starting off, I want to talk about how the US is shifting to liberal voters. According to a poll by Harvard, 18 to 29-year-olds prefer Democratic control. Up to 55% of 18 to 29-year-olds prefer Democratic control. As Gen Z grows up older and older, more liberal voters are coming to the polls. As they grow up, they're becoming more liberal voters, making them to start voting more on things like abortion. Also, according to the Gallup, 46% of adults identify as Democratic, compared to 43% identify as Republican. With there being more of a majority of Democrats, they're going to focus more on abortion, seeing as how that has been a big thing for them. According to The Atlantic, abortion is more of a Democratic issue, and more Democrats vote more and more on abortion-wise rather than inflation. Next, I want to talk about how abortion rights are more political, and inflation is more economic. Abortion has direct links to politics. There are direct laws banning abortion or keeping it legal, whereas inflation is more economic. Economic has theories, and there's a whole bunch of things about it on how inflation and economic works, but there's no direct cause or one single direct cause with how inflation works, because that's just how the world works. According to some of the Democratic gubernatorial nominees in Nevada, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and other states run abortion ads, meaning that they are Democrats who are focusing on abortion. Whereas, according to the Washington Post, Republicans are erasing their online references to abortion, making this more of a Democratic issue. Democrats are running ads showing their feelings on abortion and how if they want to protect it or protect a person's right to abortion or not. Because they're directly running ads on these things, it means that it's going to become a more Democratic issue. And with my last point, how I said how Democrats are becoming more and more of the voter base, that means that Democrats are going to focus on abortion, making it a bigger thing when it comes to the midterms. Lastly, I want to talk about how abortion has more coverage and consequences. Whenever you go onto Google and you just look up abortion protests, you're going to get a lot of protests that are near you. Whenever I looked up, I found at least 4 that were near me in Kentucky starting about tomorrow. You will get to see a whole bunch of protests that are about abortion, whether it be you're pro-abortion or anti-abortion. In any way, those are protests that are going to be there, they're going to be visible, they're going to be in big places, they're well known. Whereas whenever you look up inflation protests, whenever you look that up on Google, you're going to get them in France, which is where they have been notoriously known for years. France is known for protesting, so of course you're going to see a whole bunch of protests there. So whenever you look up just inflation protests, they're not going to be anyone's near you. You're going to see them in France. That was the first article that I found whenever I looked up inflation protests. And we are not near France. So, also according to The Atlantic, they say that in America, inflation may be more of an inconvenience than an existential threat. This allows voters to focus more on things like abortion because that is seen as a direct threat to some of their rights, whereas inflation is just more seen as an inconvenience. People will be like, it is what it is. They can't directly affect it with their votes, whereas with abortion, they can actually go in and their votes can affect on whether abortion is going to be legal or illegal. So today, we've seen that abortion is going to be the thing that affects the midterms more, with seeing how the US is shifting to more liberal voters, meaning that abortion is going to be more on their minds, meaning that they're going to vote more for abortion things, whereas abortion rights are more political and inflation is economic, meaning that the people can actually do something about abortion rights, and how Democrats are running on more abortion ideas, whereas Republicans are not. And lastly, with how abortion has more coverage and consequences, how there are actually protests for abortion, and how inflation is seen more as just like an inconvenience. So, as I said, abortion is going to be the thing that affects